Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmer, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, upon me hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Talk about home affairs, hey, in diaspora, current affairs, hey, reliable information, history, talking about culture, yeah, politics, education, entertainment, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
And I am Anthony C.A. and welcome to Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Talking about Liberia, Liberia has passed the MCC score, and the government of Liberia and some officials of the Liberian government are celebrating, and they are blowing the trumpet of achievement. What is the MCC scorecard? What does it do? What does it mean for our people? What is in it when one passes the scorecard? Does it help to improve the quality of life in Liberia in any way, shape, and form? Would they help this country to make progress economically? There's so much politics about this. The last time we passed the MCC score was in 2015, and Liberia benefited from a $557 million, if I'm not mistaken. That was the Unity Party's administration at the time. I remember very well that time Amara Conan, who has just endorsed Joseph Yemambuaka, was Liberia's finance minister. The pictures you see here on the screen shows the signing of that compact grant to Liberia after Liberia passed the MCC Scorecard. Folks, welcome and welcome. So today we'll be discussing the topic Liberia's passing of the MCC Scorecard and 2023 runoff election. There's so much politics about this scorecard, and we want to know how it benefits our people in Liberia. Seated and ready to go for the discussion that will be like a debate is Jaron Gibman, the host of our program On Point. He supports President Weah, and he does not apologize for his views and position as a sedition. He drinks from the Sacramarian cup that is out of juice right now. Johnny Oil from the Sunshine State of Florida is Jaron Gibman. It's good to see you, young man. How you doing? I see that you're growing some beer like me now.
Well, Mr. Shea, thank you for having me. It is unfortunate that you will have me on when I'm in my Sunshine State and I'm about to gloat, and I'm basking in the glory of the success of the administration of Dr. George Mane Seguze Bekube Weah, with his able lieutenant to have pulled us out of the doldrum of the opposition that have never given us credit for anything. And here we are. A few years ago, they were parading all over the place that we have failed the Millennium Challenge and they were doomed for the Weah administration. And today, here we are. Something caught my eye. Is a friend, somebody who have always read about. Mr. John Stewart wrote something, and I will be going over that. But for now, thank you very much. I want to say thank you very much, President Weah and the team, for a job well done. We will be celebrating on the 14th May night. Thank you.
Thank you, Jaron. Also seated is Dr. Ere Z.N. Boto, a former member of the ruling Coalition for Democratic Change. He is now with the Rebuilders Party, one of Liberia's newest political parties that just got registered and participated in the elections. It's good to see you, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Mr. I think it's unusual because very often I used to appear on this show as a citizen. But as human being, we do evolve. I'm happy to be here to discuss the MCC report card with you. I have few reservations about the report, but I will hold it to my chest for now since we haven't let the ball out of the ball rolling. Today, I want to also tell my colleagues here that I was one of the candidates, the representative candidates for the gone election that took place October 10th. But I was slightly defeated, and I learned my lesson. I want to say that 2029, I will be back again. The Rebuilder Party is as he said, is one of the newest party on the block. We are here to rebuild. We are not here to rescue or fix. We want to rebuild the bricks and the foundation of Liberia. Thank you.
All right. He joins us from the nation's capital. My good friend, Jimmy Eastman, is a host here at Focus on Liberia. We know him to be independent. I don't know how independent he is, but he is independent. Jimmy, it's good to have you, brother. How you doing?
Yes, very independently independent.
Okay.
I'm glad to be on. This is an important discussion. Anything that relates to the economic benefit of our people is an important discussion. So with that said, I intend to have a riveting discussion with you gentlemen.
Thank you. Also here is Gabriel Carter, who is the host of our program, FOL Marketplace, that is focused on Liberia Marketplace, where they discuss everything economics, business, and money. They call it finance, but I like the word money. What is the French word for money? L'argent, they call it, right?
Jean.
Yeah, l'argent. Gabriel is somebody in the financial cycle. That's what he does for a living. He is a vice president at a financial institution. So when we're talking some numbers and money, Gabriel knows a little more. Gabriel, it's good to have you.
Sir, thank you for having me. It's good to be here, and look forward to a great discussion.
Thank you so very much. Maurice Croman should be joining us. He's here, by the way. He's just getting ready to appear on the screen. Then he will be here for the discussion. Maurice just completed his studies in development with specialty in a particular area. So this falls completely within his line of study, because in the Millennium Challenge 10 year is more about trying to make cash available to countries that are struggling with development and see what they can do for their people. So that is within development. So Maurice should be here. And Maurice is also a supporter of GMB. And the last time Liberia passed this was when the Unity Party was in charge. The CDC has been struggling for the past 5 years. And finally, according to Jerome, they are glutting. Well, let's get started, gentlemen. And Gabriel, I will start with you here. This is your area. The whole MCC score thing. What does it do? What is the goal of it? And the entire scorecard thing, what does it measure?
So thank you. Thank you, Sia. That is a great question, and I think on this show I think on the marketplace we've covered the scorecard several times. Probably I'll say about 3 times, and similar to everyone who have talked about the scorecard, every time it come, we review it. Everyone has a reservation as to, the area that we pass. It's fortunately that we passed it this year. I think probably this is my second time on the show where we've passed the scorecard. And, similar to everybody, I do have reservation too in terms of, the metrics, but most importantly, the methodology that they use to measure it. And but in terms of what the scorecard is, if you can give me a minute here, I took some notes if I can get right into them. Just bear with me here. So the scorecard itself is actually, hold on right a second. All right, I can't find my notes here. Sorry, guys.
All right, you look for your note there and let me know when you find it. Jimin.
Let me find out. I'll be right back. Go ahead.
Thank you. The scorecard is a good measurement that one can say is relative to Liberia in terms of measuring how the country or any of the countries who are fighting for this compact money are doing, or it's just a standard for those who are giving the money. Which one you think people should be looking at actually, Jimmy?
Well, if we look at the overall, I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. If we look at the overall objective of this challenge, is to support transparency, is to support governance where there will not be discrimination, and it is to encourage countries who want assistance to adhere to certain guidelines of fairness, equality, and retribution to their country. So it's a good idea. Now, it is not something that will cover everything, but it is somewhat of an index that we could use to measure how well we're doing. And the benefit to countries is that they have access to, believe, some funds and or grants of those nature. So there is a incentive to meet these criteria. However, you can meet these the criteria without necessarily passing in all areas. Yeah, there's a percentage you have to attain. Like you can make a 70, but we all know sometimes you can make a 70 if you fail in math. If you look at it, we use the student analogy. If you fail in math, you can even get an 80 average. They will not let you go to the next class. So there are some areas that we're not doing too well in, but it is a improvement from where we were before. So if they want to attaboy, I think we can give them an attaboy. They are improving, but there's some areas that definitely have to be addressed if we're going to be on a better path. Are you with me there?
Yeah, Jimmy, I'm with you. Gabriel, you are back. Are you set to go?
Yes, I'm back and ready to go. Let me
Oh,
let me
okay.
just give
Yes. So go
so
ahead.
I
Mhm.
I believe Jimmy touched on the what the MCC is a little bit, but I just want to expand on it for the sake of this conversation.
Mhm.
So the MCC was just an act created by the U.S. Congress in 2004. It's pretty much to invest in country to in countries um, to effect democracy in those countries in terms of utilizing development dollars. So it's pretty much as an incentives, right, to help country improve democracy, improve governance, especially poor countries. So that's pretty much what the act is about. And based on this act, there are what I call methodologies of each metrics, right? Such as trade policy, investing in people, access to finance, and some of those metrics and methodology are provided by either the World Bank or the Heritage Foundation or the IMF. So those are mostly the three institutions that actually provide the the measuring metrics that is used to measure each country's uh, progress in achieving those measures, right? However, without getting too much into this, I think what I would want us to look on more, because it will allow people to bring their reservation to reality, is what the methodology are that they use. So I'll just speak on one for as an example, and maybe it will open you guys' eyes as to why I don't believe we should rely on this thing here of the accuracy of what they are. And I know this is a great is a probably an outlandish statement that anybody can ever say, but I have the reason to back it up. And let me say that right now, right? 1 minute here. So, perfect example, right? The access to finance, as you know, this is my area. So when I saw that repeatedly, the country passing it repeatedly, and knowing what all of us know about Liberia, the banking situation, the access to finance in Liberia, I said, okay, what are these people using to measure what's access to financing is in the country? And if you guys doubt me, just go to the MCC website right now. This is where I got this from. So there's two measures, two things that they use, and this is provided by the IMF. The first one, financial institution access. That's from the IMF, right? It used the financial institution access indicator from the IMF, right? Development index. So what they do is the number of banks or ATM that's available to 1,000 people. So how many people have access to how many? So per thousand people, how many ATMs or bank branches do those people have access to? That's one, right? The other one assesses account information. How many people have access to bank account? So if you and I are now sitting on here, we thinking access to finance, we are thinking, hey, that means more Liberian people are getting loans to start businesses. They're getting capital to do whatever they want to do. But in reality, the way it is being measured is, do you have access to an ATM or a bank branch within where you live? How many among 100,000 people? How many bank branches or ATMs are closer to them? That's one. The second one is, how many of us on here have a bank account? So it is it is different to our perception of what we think access to financing is. And this is one of the reasons why I believe these measures and methodology, we need to pay attention to the measures and methodology that these people use to put these things out, because we have a different perception of what it is, but in actuality, they're assessing something completely different, which if you're using these metrics that we just looked at right now, it is not beneficial to the country. So it's just what I call, a high level assessment that doesn't have any, impact on the average citizen within the country. So I will leave it on that for now. But that's the reason why I have reservation about this, and I think that's the reason why everybody have reservation about this. Look at the methodology of what they use to bring out those numbers. Thank you.
Hassan, I believe you are muted. We don't hear nothing you say, my man.
Hassan, yeah, you're muted.
So, Maurice, I'm coming to you. I said, what is your understanding of the MCC overall goal here with this compact that they set up for mostly developing countries and other countries as well?
Thank you, Hassan, and it's good to be here in the midst of some of our compatriots to talk about our country. So the MCC, I love the way that Gabriel has laid it out, because it seemed like he and I had very similar thought about what are the criteria and what is it that MCC is using to give out this huge grant to countries and quote unquote that are improving in their democracy. When I look at what is happening with the MCC, and I want to go further just a little bit further from what Gabriel just talked about. When we look at the 2022 Human Rights Report from Liberia, clearly you can see that the State Department issues some very damning statements about what is happening in the country. But somehow, MCC is able to give a passing grade to the state in I was just looking at it today. Let me look at in areas of rule of law, or political rights and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that there are no political rights in the country. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is some of the things that and some of the grades that the MCC is using to give out these grain to countries, I think, in my opinion, and because I'm a development person, we always challenge these international credentials. I think it's just based on people sitting in DC and making these decisions. And I'll give you another example. The corruption report, international corruption, whatever that thing is. I forgot what the word is. But it's based on a perception that is happening in developing countries. So if you go and say Liberia rank 100
control of corruption,
out of 180 countries on the corruption index, that index is not you actually evaluating the state and how it. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
That index is not evaluated. Okay, so that index is not evaluated on the state actual corruption. Is based on asking people. You go into Monrovia and ask people in Monrovia, how do you feel about corruption in your government? How do you feel about corruption in the public space? But how about the people that are living in Grand Creek County? How about the people that are living in Southtown? How about the people that are living in Bapolo County? And if you don't get a broader view of what is happening across the country, or you take a USAID report that was published 2 years earlier and say, just based on this USAID report and based on me asking 100 people, this is what my assumption of corruption is in a particular country. So these things are international, there are international benchmarks that are set up to evaluate these countries. And just because of that, I don't think it's worth celebrating. I was just telling one of my friends today that if you go to Ganta and you gather 25 people and tell them that Liberia passed MCC, 25 of those people will ask you what is MCC. They don't know what MCC is, right? So this whole MCC passing is for the small elite, the 1% elite that's sitting in Monrovia that can probably understand it. And even some of the understanding of it is skewed. It's not detailed. But they take it and they try to make a big issue out of it, and people running around saying, okay, we passed MCC. Okay, that's good. What does it mean for the young child that is sitting in Grand Bassa County that don't have access to education? So we shouldn't celebrate this because, even when the early administration won MCC, I don't think it was something to celebrate unless we actually pass compact and we get a 254 million, 500 million, whatever they gave us at that time. Let's be able to absorb that money into development initiatives that impact the lives of people all across the country. So when you build a road that gave access to people to healthcare and education, then yes, we can say now, okay, this is the impact of what MCC has done for our country. But rather just passing MCC to me, it's not much for us to celebrate.
Thank you. And so the simple question now.
May I pose a question to my comrade over there, Nkrumah? The reason why this was created was so that U.S. can use a smart method of providing aid to developing countries. Now, from given what you just said against that backdrop, is there a better method that the U.S. could use to determine who to provide aid to? Is there a better index or indices that they could use?
So, I mean, I'm sure my man Gabriel will tell you that I'm not a fan of aid, but we can talk a little bit about that. So here's
good.
I've never been a fan of what development aid. I don't think development aid has ever impacted any country. In reality, actually, development aid benefits the donor more than it benefits the recipient of aid. And we can go into the details of that if you guys have time. But there are several different mechanisms that different organizations use. The UN, have the HDI that they measure to talk about aid and its effectiveness. There are other organizations that use different methods. In countries like Bhutan, they talk about the happiness index. They measure success of their citizens based on how happy they are. If the people feel satisfied with the services that they're receiving, they think things are going okay. There are other organizations that measure the economy, that talk about GDP. When GDP grows, it means the country is doing well. But it's not necessarily true. GDP can grow, and that growth can only stay within the top 2% or the top 5% of the population. Whereas people that are in the interior of the country who don't have access to education, healthcare, security, electricity, those people are not impacted by GDP growth at all. So all of those things, all of them have their own shortcomings. It's extremely difficult, my brother Eastman, to actually give aid in a way that aid impact the ordinary people at the bottom. I like the MCC model. I'm not going to lie to you. I love it because it focuses on particular areas like electricity, like roads. Those are the binding constraints for economic development. However, to measure it sometimes can be extremely difficult because in a society where corruption is pervasive and people give justification for it, you can cut corners around and still be successful and say, we did well with this, but actually you did not. That's just my honest view about it.
Thank you. So gentlemen, if one were to ask the question, did Liberia pass? And it's obvious the answer will be yes. And so we're going to show that here. So this is the scorecard, and this is Liberia, gray sheet, by the way. And as you can see, In terms of fiscal policy, Liberia passed with 51%. Inflation, Liberia passed. And the green signifies passing. Political rights, Liberia passed with a score there. Civil liberty, Liberia passed. Control of corruption, Liberia passed. Regulatory control, Liberia failed. That is the rev, 46%. Trade policy, Liberia passed. Government effectiveness, Liberia failed. Rule of law, Liberia passed. Freedom of information, Liberia passed. Gender in the economy, Liberia passed. Land rights, Liberia passed. Health expenditure, Liberia passed. Education expenditures, Liberia failed. Natural resources protection, Liberia failed. Access to credit, Gabriel was talking about this. Maybe you know, talk. They want employment opportunity, Liberia passed. Is that 100% I'm saying there? Employment opportunity, maybe I'm reading that wrong. Immunization rate, Liberia passed there. I think I see 54%. Girls primary education completion rate, Liberia failed. Child health, Liberia failed. And according to the way they set it up, for a country to pass, a country passes the scorecard when it fulfills at least 10 of the 20 indicators, including the control of corruption and other the civil liberties or political rights indicators. So for a country to pass, you know, you need to pass, our country must fulfill or pass 10 of the 20 indicators to include either the civil liberty or political rights, and Liberia pass. So that is the passing there. Now, the thing I want us to dwell on now is, what is this celebration all about? And talking about celebration, and this is where the politics, the part of life comes in. Here is the finance minister last year. We heard that Liberia has passed because Liberia was able to pass more than 10 of the 20 indicators. And yet the finance minister.
So yesterday when you hear me singing, oh, I'm
So there you had the finance minister of Liberia, Samuel D. Twell, last year, celebrating, dancing, and singing that Liberia had passed, because they were almost like under stress that Liberia was not successful in passing. The pass they had, they didn't even get the money though. All right. And this time, you know, they passed 14 out of the 20 indicators to include 2 of the more critical areas you must pass to be qualified for a grant. Then there was another elaborate kind of program today where he appeared and he spoke, and there are some things he said I will be bringing to you, the smart panelists, to discuss. All right. And my simple question, gentlemen, if we are to measure how we're doing in Liberia economically in terms of governance, is the MCC scorecard the better metrics to use for which the government should be celebrating? Let me welcome Comrade Joe Wilson. And Comrade Joe Wilson, you take on that difficult question, sir.
Thank you. And I'd like to say good evening to the cohort of panelists here, and also to the audience that are listening or watching via whatsoever medium. Yes, regarding the MCC scorecard. So usually when I see these kind of reports, you know, whether it is positive or negative, I normally would dive into it to understand the details. You know, like we normally say, the devil is always in the details.
Mm-hmm.
So when you read these kind of reports, what comes to mind is, what is the context on the ground? What is actually happening on the ground? How does it impact the livelihood of the people? So just by looking at this report and you being in the media landscape for a while now, assessing the issues in Liberia, debating the social political situation in the country, I'm not sure if you will agree with me or agree with this report as it is presenting that there is the independent, we have a very independent judiciary in the country, because when you look at the rule of law, these are some of the indicators on which the reports are measured. For example, where is it? I think Liberia passing civil liberty or something. But when you look at that, it is measured against the rule of law. It is measured against transparency, measured against justice, right? We've been discussing on this show, people are dying in the country. There's no justice for professional people. And you want to tell us, Liberians, that yes, this is a good report that we should celebrate? When we're discussing the independence of the judiciary system, when a certain Chief Justice, not Chief Justice, Justice Kabinajana to be specific, was removed, you want to tell me that this report is something that I should celebrate? Listen, we understand some of the context that comes around these sort of reports, right? Who wrote the reports? What are the contexts around it? Who is even providing the data? What is the narrative that this report is trying to convey? The reality on the ground is these are not things to celebrate. I wouldn't celebrate them. While it is true these reports are good, but I wouldn't celebrate them at this time because it is not a genuine reflection of what is happening in the country. For example, look at the measurement access to one of the indicators, the access to finance.
Access to finance.
Access to credit, yeah, that's the word. Yeah. It is just measuring how many ATMs are around, how many people got mobile phones, right? How does that increase small businesses in the country? How does that, when you talk about access to finance, some of you have friend Gabriel Carter, seasoned financial expert, when you talk about access to credit, what does that mean? What does that mean for small businesses? What does that mean for smallholder farmer, right? Do we have a better situation in the country right now? People are struggling in the country. Small businesses are dying because due to the lack of access to finance, right? So is this something you want to celebrate? You see, this just goes back to some of the things we would normally debate in grad school, right? Where the UN or the World Bank will write you a very nice report, paint a very nice narrative about the country when it is far from reality. So
Thank you.
These are not things to celebrate. It's nothing political. It is strictly professional because not just from a professional perspective, but also as a Liberian. I go to the country. I relate to the country. So I want to stop there. My little daughter is kind of distracting me a little bit. So
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Gitman, I think the general point Comrade Wilson is making is that this report, as good as this one looks now, that is almost like saying that, well, things are better in the country because that's what it shows. Because if you pass 14 out of 20, that is a huge passing mark. And one might be thinking that, well, this means that things are good on the ground. And Comrade Wilson here is saying, no, the report does not reflect the reality on the ground. So this is not something you should celebrate. Access to credit, for example. How many persons can walk to a bank and get credit right now to start a business? That is his argument. What is your counter, sir?
Well, Mr. Asani, just before he comes in, Quito Solonte, he made the same comment, observation. Access to finance is different from access to credit.
Okay.
In other words, can you get money? There are situations in various countries where you can't even get your money out of the bank. Mm-hmm. So let's look at what we are examining here. We're talking about access to finance, not access to credit.
So even the access to credit, does it reflect what it actually is on the ground? Because they are reporting, giving Liberia a passing mark. Jerome, your turn.
Well, I don't even know why you called me here, because I'm here sipping on my a sip of my Dom Perignon. For the first time, I'm drinking one of the most expensive wines in the country. I told my wife, go right to the store and buy me the most expensive wine. She said, I'll bring you Dom Pedro. I said, that's fine. Let me speak my French. But a few years ago, these are the same folks. And Joe Wilson is a walking contradiction. This guy. I've been watching him. I've been following him here. And my brother Kroma here. These are the same folks who were here when we failed the MCC. And they derailed this government for being ineffective. And you were here. I told you this 2 years ago. The former ambassador, McCarthy, when he went for his confirmation, the question that was asked about Mr. Fernandez, when you go to Liberia, what would be your number one priority? He says, I am going to fight the perception of corruption in Liberia. That was his main goal, he says, because he said, we provided money. We have our expertise in every agency in Liberia. Through USAID, we control everything and our numbers add up. So no one can accuse the United States of lavishing our money or wasting our money in Liberia. That's the perception of the Liberian people on the street, but that's not a reality in our books. So here we are, the same group of folks now that we have passed the Millennium Challenge massively, and we are here gloating and drinking Dom Perignon, and the finance minister is all over the place dancing. In fact, the buka dance that we're going to dance this time is going to be even louder. When we talk about access, listen, when we talk about access to finance as opposed to access to credit, these guys will go out there and come up with all these, they go into the weed and pick up stuff. I'm looking at, you cannot argue with us that civil liberty in Liberia is at the highest. Press freedom in Liberia, in fact, who passed the Camara Act? It was this government. Who supported Yeke Koluba and this guy, Joe Wilson, Kruma, they're supporting Yeke Koluba to go out there and disgrace and curse the president's mother and all of that. And the president have never, there is no political prisoner. These are things that we are looking at. When we took over from Kruma, when Kruma was working in our government, when we took over, inflation was at 30%. Inflation now is 6.7%. When we took over, they said Ghana was the epitome of economic success. Today, Ghana have filed for bankruptcy, inflation at 54%. Okay. So here we are. Let's see, George. Let's see, President Weah, the CDC, TOE. These guys are as brilliant as they can be, and it's self-evident in our report. And I can tell you,
Mr. Gaiman, I want you to learn with this. Mr. Gaiman, I want you to learn with this so your colleagues can come in. Comrade Wilson spoke and he talked about the ineffectiveness of the Liberian government. All right, and you referenced that too, when you started your expose. Even the recent report in which you passed, you feel government effectiveness.
That's correct.
Your government is not effective.
That's correct.
I don't know what are you celebrating now. And another thing you say is girls' primary education completion rate is 19.
That's correct. That's correct.
We're talking about the foundation of the country. You are celebrating.
That's correct.
That the primary education completion rate of girls in Liberia is at 90%.
That's correct.
All right. And now when you talk about natural resources protection, 0. You score
That's
0.
Correct. That's correct.
The whole country is lost. And then when you talk about regulatory control,
that's correct.
You fail. That's why maybe you have all the drugs in the country.
That whatever you say
is, what are you celebrating?
But listen, the objective of the millennium or any self-assessment is to give you where you have done well and where you need to improve. Those areas that we need to improve, we have no argumentation there. We need to do more in protecting our natural resources, because even under the previous government, 66 of the 68 agreement in our concession agreement sectors there were looted by the Unity Party. It was taken away. We need to do more in that area. We are talking about girls. Excuse me. We're talking about girls' education. Absolutely, we have to put more resources in girls' education. We know this. Absolutely. But for now, we got 6 areas to improve it. We got 14 areas that we passed that have never been. In fact, Ellie, Mr. Krumah is here. Ellie and the Unity Party, the time they passed, they never came close to even 12. We got 14 out of 20. 14 out of 20. My friend, this is like Joe Biden used to say when they passed the Barack Obama thing. He was so happy he went to Barack Obama in his ear and said, this is a mother effing big deal. I won't say that this is national TV, but this is a big deal in Liberia. We got 14 out of 20. This is big deal. And we have to bloat. I will drink some more. Let me see.
That's just 70%, just in case you didn't know that.
Listen,
you didn't pass with a higher mark. That's just
40% before we are up to 70%.
That's C or C plus.
And Gabriel, before I can go to Morris,
sip of my Dom Perignon here.
And Gabriel, before I can go to Morris, you know, I don't know. What should we be measuring for the improvement of our country? I'm seeing 2 things, and you guys, smart guys, can correct me here. This is an institution that set its criteria for one to get qualified for some money to help their people. And as a country, we should be looking at the material condition of our people. What our own measurement, all right, that we are using that in line with the MCC. Do we have anything that in line with the MCC scorecard? Because I think our own measurement should be measuring the realities on the ground and not what the people set into motion for you to be qualified for some money.
That's a very good point. I don't know if you're asking everybody in general. We do need to set our own criteria and objectives and goals we want to achieve. Mm-hmm. Just like one of the brothers was here, he was saying, I'm not such a great fan of credit. He's completely right. A lot of those credit.
He said aid.
Credit, yeah, financial aid. A lot of those financial are disguised package to benefit the donor country. We, in the end, we get very little, and we have to pay back a whole lot. That was led to E.J. Roy death, a bad debt. So he's right to say that he's not a fan of just crediting money. But what are we coming up with? What are the standards we're trying to live up to? That has to be articulated so that everybody gets on board and aims to the same target. So you're completely right. We need to establish our own goals and objectives that we want to achieve that will be meaningful to us, not just to get credit for somebody else.
Thank you. And Morris, I'm coming to you. Let me come to Dr. Boto here. Dr. Boto.
Thank you.
I was listening to the finance minister. He said, no president has ever faced the difficulties President Weah faces today. Samuel Twe was speaking, and you are the politician, you contest. And he went further by saying, Joshua is the greatest president ever in the Republic of Liberia. Do you share any form of agreement, or what would be your disagreement with Samuel Twe?
To a certain extent, I think it's a blanket statement.
Okay.
To say that he is the only president who is facing challenges more than any other president ever, without making without comparing or bringing out as.
He's having some connection issue there, and you know, Samuel Twe was saying that, well, this is the first social media president. I don't know, that was his conclusion there, that because he's the first social media president.
Is that a compliment or a condemnation?
I really don't know. Comrade Boto was giving his submission there, but he will come back. Morris, let me come to you. He says something, and Comrade Wilson, he can follow after that. And I wrote it down here. He said in 2011, the Central Bank annual report showed a net reserve of $337.9 million. Now, between 2017 and 2018, that's dropped to $110 million, with a difference of $227 million that disappeared. So he's accusing the Unity Party of squandering 227 million between 2011 and 2018. That you took the reserve, you depleted the reserve from 337.9 million to 110 million. He cited the central bank report. And now he said, current report, he didn't say the year, he said current report now from the central bank net reserve is 332 million. That is an addition of 212 million. I went on the central bank report. I tried to find it. I couldn't find it because of my first time trying to dissect the entire report. Is there any truth in what Samuel Twe is saying?
Hasn't you don't need a rocket scientist to tell you how this honest is. The question of director, I mean, Chief.
Yeah, I know. I want to talk.
You've been speaking. Nobody gave you nobody cut you off.
Yeah.
Did you use the word squander? I just want to make sure y'all heard you say. Did you say it?
Yeah, yes, I use the word squander.
Okay, good.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, that's all.
Morris, go ahead. You are protected.
Yeah, you don't need. I mean, Boto is back. If you want, you can go back to him. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. First, I just wanted to first of all explain something on the Millennium Challenge.
Mm-hmm.
The Millennium Challenge came about mainly because the G7 or the G8 feel that there were challenges the other countries were facing, especially African countries. And the only way they could help them is to come up with a benchmark. And that's the reason why you have this.
Yeah, Boto connection is giving him trouble there.
What kind of presidential candidate is this?
No, he contested as the representative, non-presidential.
Is he out of Liberia?
Oh.
Yeah, he's here. Morris, you can go on.
So yeah, what I was saying is you don't need a rocket scientist to tell you about Twe and his number of lies. I mean, Twe have lied so much since the government came to power that if you actually take all of his lies and put it in a bucket, and if those were the criteria for which we're used to elect our next president, maybe, President, we will come the 20th. He'll be the 20th president in line.
Okay, sorry. I'm at the airport, seated at the airport in transit, so the network here is fluctuating. That's the reason why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So as you can see, the benchmark, one of the engine of the benchmark is governance. You must govern your people right. That is the reason why they place in the effectiveness, the ability to produce a desired goal, effectiveness. We say we passed this particular millennial challenge or the millennial goal. Yeah. But the engine, the elective, because when you select your subject, there will be one or two subjects in there to be your elective. And the elective is to govern our people well, with effectiveness, but we fail it. Yeah, we are celebrating it. My reservation, again, it has to do with the inflation. I don't know what benchmark they use to measure inflation in Liberia, especially where 70% of the rural area, when we have in rainy season, prices in the rural area triples, not just when Becquerel is being sold in Monrovia.
Yeah. I think the comrade should excuse us. We can't go back before. Yeah.
So as I was saying, maybe I should go back.
Comrade, please address the issue of the net reserve being reduced.
So I was saying basically that Twe is a pathological liar, and I'm saying it with clear emphasis because he has a history of it now. This is the same Twe that told us that he went to the African Development Bank and he was making about $150,000 annually. Or 500, sorry, he said 500 and something $1,000 annually. When he got dug into it, he couldn't, give good explanation. The same Twe came out, he has told us before that Liberia was exporting electricity to Ivory Coast. And when, the alarm came about it, Money Captain had to come and, clean up for him and try to explain what that meant when we say, sharing power with Ivory Coast. The same Twe. So if I go into Twe lies, it's just so many. Now, this same Twe told us in 2017 when CDC took over that the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government left the Liberian coffers empty, that there was nothing left in the government at all. The government was broke when they took over the country. So I find it interesting that Twe is coming back to tell us that he saw $110 million in the Central Reserve. It's interesting, but he's brave to tell us that 200 million of that money was depleted. Now, but when Ellen Johnson Sirleaf took over in 2005, there was no reserve. There was zero reserve. And an external debt of over $4 billion. A domestic debt of over $800 million. So within 12 years, you took over you took care of your external debt, you took care of your domestic debt, you increased civil servant salary by over 300%. At the same time, you're able to reserve some money in the coffers, whatever that amount was. It doesn't matter to me right now, see, because if you take over,
Mr. Crowman, your answer to my question is
no.
Samuel Twe is not capable of telling any truth because he cited two separate reports of the central bank. Let me land. He cited two separate reports of the central bank, and you are saying, "Well, don't believe the man because he has a history of lying." If he could be telling the truth this time, he quoted the central bank two separate reports, 2011 and the most recent report.
But Chief, this thing Samuel Twe was quoting World Bank just 3 months ago when he told us that 23 million people came out of poverty. You remember? Or whatever million he said came out of poverty. A million amount that was so over the population of Liberia. This same Twe man, he just said it just a few months ago, remember? And he was quoting the World Bank. So when Twe tells you that he's a man, you should think about it critically and say, I wonder if he's actually saying the truth about it. If he even tell you that his name is Samuel Twe, you should ask yourself whether it's actually.
Not interrupting you, at some point he said we had a surplus when there was nothing like surplus at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, deficit. They went back to the legislature, recast the budget every single year. Twe have been finance minister almost every single year. They have gone back to the legislature to recast the budget, which technically means that there has been deficit. But he lies about these things. So Twe is a pathological liar. I'm telling you, I will not give Twe any credence on anything he says. Unfortunately, President Weah sees Twe as the most educated man in CDC. So whatever he says is Lord and gospel to the internal workings of the CDC people. That's why Jerome Gimena is sipping on Dom Perignon. You know what he said?
Yeah, that's what he said.
Okay.
And
your French is getting better, son.
and Gabriel, and this is key. This is the finance minister. He should be the man of numbers. He quoted Central Bank annual report of 2011 that there was a net reserve of 337.9 million, and that the Unity Party depleted it till they left 110. I have not been able to find that aspect of the report stating this fact. I mean, I don't know, I should call it fact that he's quoting, right? And now latest report, according to him, is 332 million, meaning that they have added 212 million in the reserve. Is there a way we can know whether the finance minister is telling the truth? Because he concluded his argument by saying, this is what's going to decide the election. I don't know how many Liberians are aware of this, what is even reserved, and I'll be voting on the basis of that.
Yeah, and sometimes, when I've listened to the guy, he's something what we call, what we typically see within our Liberian community. He talks a lot, and if you're not good at catching up, you will buy into that sweet talk and believe everything he says. I think Morris alluded to some of the basic math. If you claim, let's hypothetically take his word for it that he met 110 million in there and they're now up to 332 million. Perfect. I will give you that. How are you able to add that much money to that if you're having a budget deficit every year, having a recast? That's the simple math issue. That's the first thing that should come to you, right? If you were even keeping the bare minimum to say you're balancing the budget, you pass the budget every year, you're not having a deficit, I would say, yeah, there's a little surplus every now and then. Maybe you can squeeze here and there, and put some to the reserve, right? But every year since this administration came into power, they're having every year they pass the budget. By December, the budget is passed. Within March or April, we're having a budget recast, and we cover this thing here. The reason I know about it because we cover it here every time they do a recast. So how is it are you able to have a deficit every year, but now telling us that you have you know uploaded, you have increased the reserve at the at the central bank?
That's a central bank.
That's it. I don't have to do the math. That's just a basic logic you should look at, and I think everybody who's listening to him, that's the first thing you should look at before you even go into the other stuff that are so complicated. That's the basics. You don't have a budget. You're underperforming with your budget every year. You barely have minimum to pay your bills. Where are you having enough to say I'm going to save, let alone add to the reserve of the government? So that's I don't even want to take it that far. I think that's the basic way we should even look at this thing. They just tell you that whatever he's saying is not accurate. It's just flamboyant.
Comrade Wilson, if you want me to not believe Samuel Twer, you got to give me some logical explanation of the economics dynamics of Liberia. Gabriel, give me something that is logical. Why should I not believe Samuel Twer that added 212 million to the National Reserve?
Listen, I mean, the facts are out there.
Mm-hmm.
But for the sake of the show, right, for the sake of this conversation, budget, let's go back to the budget, talking about surplus, right? Budget should be a reflection of the countries and not just the economy, but the lives of the people. The budget should be a reflection of that. So if we are having, for example, like a growth in our budget consistently, and we are having a surplus, like he said, we're in our reserves or whatsoever, that means the economy is growing. That means the livelihood of the people should also be moving along that trajectory, because when businesses are thriving, when government expenditure is increasing and going down towards small businesses, of course, it impacts the household. Livelihoods will be improved. But listen to me, Anthony. Just from the USAID report on agriculture, is that about 50% of our country people live on less than $1.90 a day, living in poverty. So where is the surplus? Where's the surplus in the reserve when our people are dying, our people are living in extreme poverty, our people are suffering? That doesn't make sense. It's just simple. You don't need a high level, economic analysis to look at the lies, right? Listen to me, like Gabriel was saying, you just have to pay attention to Samuel Twer. If you're someone who is not probably okra with the subject matter or you're not picking up the details, Samuel Twer will lie his way to you and you would definitely want to believe it. But when he sit in the confine of people who also know the subject, who know the issues he's discussing, he doesn't get away. He can't get away because it's just so obvious. There is massive poverty in the country. Our people are living below $1.90 a day in the country. And you want to tell me of surplus. You want to tell me of good economic growth. You want an MCC report to tell me that government is doing well in certain areas, right? That doesn't make sense. Again, just to take a step back at this MCC report, just to correct a Gaiman when you're making reference to the Camara thing, it was as far back as 2011 when Madam Salif, the Unity Party-led government, signed the Table Mountain Declaration. So maybe Gaiman needs to go and read on what is the Table Mountain Declaration, because it is those things that gave birth to what we call a Camara Act. So these are things you need to know before coming on, it just be spewing things all around here. Of course, it is CDC, almost the same thing they do with. But anyway, yeah. So there are a couple of things we have to take into consideration. For me, now, if you give this sort of report, the MCC Scorecard, if you give it to a financial person, their view of it might be different. If you get into an economist, it may be different. If you get into a development professional, for me, that's one of my backgrounds, right, in development studies. So I look at the livelihood condition of other people. I look at the protection of natural resources. You feel miserably. If you look at Liberia, a country that is heavily dependent on agriculture, and you score 0 in sustainable agriculture, and you want to celebrate that? So you need to understand the social economic context of the country before you even start celebrating this sort of report. So what is the financial returns of even passing this report?
Thank you. Thank you. And Jerome, I got a soft bone for you. Hold on. I got a soft bone for you. It might choke you, so be careful, right? So according to the MCC report that you are celebrating, they say employment opportunity is 100%. Your own family are telling you that they don't have job. And these people are telling you employment opportunity in your country. It's 100%, Jerome. Unemployment rate in Liberia is in the roof. So what is this? Please make sense. This thing you're celebrating here. Is it a reality?
Oh, yes. This is very, very easy. Now, let me go back to Mr. Wilson. Because I have decided he will not get away with anything here. You remember we were talking about the protection of natural resources, then he switched it to sustainable agriculture. This guy is a snake oil salesman. Come over here. We are talking about the protection of natural resources. How do you get to agriculture? The natural resource is a conglomeration of everything in the country. And you talking about agriculture. You gotta watch this, Wilson, man. Wilson, you something else. Now let's go to Can
I provide some clarity here? Listen, a lot of people are listening to us, and some of us we come with different backgrounds and different credentials into this thing. It is so unfortunate that Jerome probably have no idea about this MCC scorecard. He has no idea. So everything that discussing natural resources does not involve agriculture. He doesn't know that these are the benchmark and indicators of natural resource protection. Jerome, read a document before you come to this kind of conversation. Man, come on now, you're making me shame, man.
Mr. Wilson, I think you need to do debate.
Anthony, can you post it on the screen?
And do debate
you have no clue. You can discuss the report.
I will not allow you to take a conglomeration of a topic and take a small segment and use that.
Can you provide? Anthony, please do your audience.
You made a clarification. Jerome, continue.
Yes.
My question was
yes.
Employment opportunity, according to the MCC scorecard, Liberia netted 100%.
That's correct.
I'm not sure of a Liberian who will believe that. Maybe I'm not understanding what it means.
Right. Listen, now they are not saying that unemployment is 0. Look at what they say. The opportunity is 100% there for you to be employed. Like I always told my nephews and my cousins, why stay in Buchanan to wait for a government job when we have 500 acres 17 miles away from Buchanan, where we got cassava, yam, potato, all of those things from which we can make money immediate, are cash crops. You're leaving them there 17 miles away from Buchanan, and you sitting there going to government offices from office to office looking for employment, and you say times are hard. How much is the job that will hire you in the government? You will be making maybe $200 a month. If you went 17 miles to our village, you could make that in a day. So yes, we all have the opportunity to make money in Liberia, to be self-employed. You can wash cars, you can sell, you can do whatever you want to do. If you wanted to get a job from the government, your prospect is almost 0. So when they are talking about opportunities, that's what they are talking about. Everybody in Liberia has the opportunity to make a decent living if you chose to do so. If you didn't want to sit in Monrovia, and you're from Bapolu, or you're from Grand Bassa, or you're from Nima, and you know you can go back to those places and make money through the agriculture my brother is talking about here. Small subsistence farming, you can make more money than sitting in Monrovia waiting for a government check. The opportunities are there. Are people taking advantage of it? No. They are not. So when they talk about opportunity, that's what it is. 100%. Anybody who wants to make money in Liberia.
Anthony, can I make a quick correction? And this is
Okay.
why I keep saying this. Before we speak on these metrics, we should go back to what they define in these metrics. Let me
Okay.
just read to you quickly
Please
what
do. That
that
is important. Yeah.
what that actually means. So
Mhm.
they said here, employment opportunity indicator. This indicator measures a country's government's commitment to ending slavery and, and forced labor, preventing employment discrimination, and protecting the rights of workers and people with disabilities. That's the indicator. That's what they're looking at. So contrary to what you're saying, that they're saying that there's opportunity. No,
It's
this is
right there
just
on the screen. Put it back on the screen. Let you see it.
Go
Mr. C, put it back on it. There you go.
Go to the
Employment opportunity. There you go.
Go to the metric they used to measure that.
Mr. Carter, I'm looking at the definition what they are putting here on the screen. We got
That's
100%
what they tell you.
opportunity to make a living.
What they used to measure that to come out with that outcome. I just read it.
Mr.
Go to
Gaiman,
the MCC.
did you hear what he just read?
Maybe.
Listen, I'm looking at the same thing he's looking at. I am responding.
No, you're not.
Excuse me. It's right here. We are looking at the question was that Liberia have 100% opportunity. It's there. It's right on the screen.
Okay.
And Jerome,
I would not allow you to
what is not on the screen. The one Gabriel talking is not on the screen.
No, excuse me. I'm talking about the question that was posed. Put the question back on the screen. It's right there.
Yeah, Jerome, pay attention. When the MCC say employment opportunities,
thank you.
They define it, and Gabriel read it. That's what we are talking about.
But I am telling
Did you hear that?
I am telling you, he is talking about, do we have slavery in Liberia?
Okay, that means you heard that.
Yeah, do we have slavery in Liberia?
No.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll rest my case.
Does that equate to employment opportunity? That's the question I'm asking you.
Yes, it does, because if you are not enslaved and you are not being deprived of the opportunity to move and make money and be self-employed, you cannot tell the lady that is selling her collar on the street that she is not employed. She is self-employed. You have that opportunity.
I rest my case on this, and this is why I believe I rest my case on there, and this is why I believe we should not. I think everybody keeps saying this. We should not rely on these international community to dictate what the condition in our countries are. The things that we want to measure are not what they're measuring, and they put these things out and we celebrate and kumbaya.
Yeah, but Mr. Carter, then why you held us responsible for the same measurement? A year ago, you were out here scrutinizing us. You were killing all that a year ago. Today, now if the table has turned, now all of a sudden we shouldn't accept
Can I finish?
That's hypocrisy.
Can I finish? At least, can I finish? Please. Thank you. This is why I believe we should not celebrate these kind of measures and metrics and these international community put out. Yes, I believe, yes, we do need the grant, but the things that they put out that like I said, when they put out these numbers, we look at them, we say, oh, this is great. But you go look at the things that they use to measure, the methodologies, go look at the data, the things that they look at is completely different. And this is why I believe, contrary to what we have right now, the central bank, I keep telling these people, the central bank needs to understand the economy, what this international community they're putting out. We need to have the same measures that actually measure the right things from the central bank or the Ministry of Finance. We need to have that.
The realities on the ground.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but if I may interject, remember now, we agree that we need our own metrics. We need our own goals, standards, and things we want to achieve before we can consider ourselves progressive. Yep. But look at the perspective from which MCC comes. The U.S. is looking for a way to lend countries money that will be favorable, they will be able to do something. So they're trying to use guidelines that where human beings are protected from slavery and from various different other things. They are looking to lend money. So it's not. They're not saying okay, what Liberia needs or what this. No, no, no.
But
How
can we
can we
update?
lend money to?
Can we, Jimmy, sorry for calling you. Can we update them to say, hey, even though this is what you guys are using, but this is not what is applicable to our country. Can you guys at least update these things so at least they align with what is in our country? If you were advising those people, that's what I would advise them to do. And when I look at the methodology they use and compare it to what is, I would say, hey, I understand we need this money, and we rightly do, but please, can we update these the way you guys look? I don't care if you apply it to any other country, but the way you apply it to us, let's update it because we want this country to improve, not on the outlook to the perception of it, but the reality of the country itself to improve. So we want to look at these measures for what they are and not what the perception are. So please update these measures, and we will do our best to fight to win those, to pass those scorecards compared to that actually align with our country. This is what the government's supposed to be doing. So
thank you,
anyway,
Gabriel. I think we have an agreement.
Well, can I get me one quick intervention, please, before we make progress? I like the trend that Gabriel is taking, but I want to just say that instead of us, I mean, you make a very fair statement, but there is a key indicator in that area that we need to pay attention to. Child labor. It's a big deal. We have to pay attention to child labor. In our context, in most developing countries, we put kids to work unconsciously thinking that we're training them into being men or being women, and we don't pay attention to the work or their growth, their personal growth. And as a result, it's actually, I think it's a good indicator. On the aspect of the slavery part, yeah, we can have a conversation with, because we can't allow the West, I mean, because you're giving us free money. And some countries now are beginning to say, no, pump your brakes. As much as we want this money, I know Rwanda have taken the lead on that and say, as much as we want this money, but we have to detect how this money is coming into our economy. It's a good thing. You can't be a sovereign country and just say, oh, because, America put $500 million out there and say, anybody that want it, here are the things that you have to follow if you want this money. And everybody jump on it. Boom. Okay, where are the indicators? So say no slavery and child labor and, governance issue. But even that measure is unfair. Because here's one thing, Anthony, just give me 1 minute. Let me read this 2022 report on Liberia from the State Department. It said the government does not require environmental, social, and governance, ESG, disclosure to facilitate transparency or help investors and consumers distinguish between high and low quality investments. But how the hell are we passing this? How the hell are we passing in trade policy if we're not even evaluating what is good for us as a country versus what is bad for us as an investment? We're just taking anything that comes to us in money and we're taking it and just putting it in our country. And there is evidence of it. Bee Mountain in Cape Mount County continue to pollute the rivers, but they're extracting all this gold and they put it in a helicopter and they fly out of the country. And nobody, even the Cape Mountainians, are impacted by this. The common people are making noise about it, but the government don't give a hand because they're getting, money every so often.
But Mr. Coleman, a point of correction here. In these United States, when I was chairing the United Way board, a gentleman by the name of Joe Wynn came up with $1 million. I think one of his relatives had died from ovarian cancer, and says, I have $1 million here that is going toward agencies that will fight and do things for ovarian cancer. But these are the conditions under which I'm going to give this $1 million. We set up a board of directors. They will get grant writers. They will evaluate. This is my condition. If you don't fit within that condition, go somewhere else. It's the same concept. The United States has money and they set a perimeter. Whether you like it or you're not, you cannot dictate to the United States Foreign Services and say your money that you are coming with, your agenda in Washington, D.C. does not fit we don't want it, we're going to change it. You either take it or you leave it. I'm saying this to say the condition the brother is talking about Bee Mountain. These are contracts that he Kroma signed. One of the 68 contracts that he signed before he left town. And here he is in the same breath saying 66 out of 68 conditions were bogus.
Yeah, Jerome, you said that Set up
Well,
because
I'm saying that this is Wilson here, and this is Krumah here. This is
Gamer.
Let's sign this contract, and he's sitting there saying,
Anthony, can you allow me to respond to what he just said? It is fair for me to respond.
Yeah,
to
I give you 30 seconds
like
because you spoke
that you
earlier. I
actually
want
raised the
to
issue.
come to Comrade Wilson.
I like the fact that you raise the issue and you bring it back to the alien administration. There's no debating about it. It's a fact that the alien administration is the one that signed the Bee Mountain Agreement. But you just rectify it under your leadership. But I'm not here to shift blame here and there. The point I'm making here is that there is a relationship, a historical relationship between the most wealthy countries that are trying so hard to determine what happens in developing countries. There's an interesting book called Decolonizing Aid. I will encourage you, if you have time, go online, find it, and read it. You will understand how aid, in fact, this thing when they say we'll get $1 million here, we'll get $500 million here, how that thing is actually stopping developing countries from developing, because it creates this culture of dependency.
Exactly.
It creates this culture where
you learned, I think, 30 years ago, man.
Thank you, Maurice. Thank you. Gentlemen, I think we have an agreement here. Hold on, gentlemen. Gentlemen, hold on.
Go ahead.
I think we have an agreement here. And so now that we have an agreement, Comrade Wilson, let me start with you on this question. So if you were doing your own scorecard, what measures or areas will you consider in determining sustainable economic growth and poverty reduction in Liberia? Because this MCC thing, I'm not sure that is the goal. If that's the goal, then the indicators are telling me something else.
Oh boy, I can lead a whole 1-month seminar on this thing and teach the entire country what to measure, what to grow. Yes, I wish I have the time to do that. But for the sake of the conversation, before you answer these sort of questions, you must first have a context. What is the economic context of the country? What is needed the most? What we are concerned with the most right now is jobs. What is the employment opportunity for people? What is the access to finance? What is the access to credit for small businesses? How are we supporting the core of our economy, which is agriculture? What investment are we making in agriculture? How much are we investing in smallholder farmers? How much investment are we making in terms of road connections, increasing and building good farm to market roads? Because those things are the bedrock of the Liberian economy. So I will measure our performance on investment in agriculture. I will measure our performance on healthcare, investment in the health sector. How are we increasing access to health? How are we there's one critical thing in healthcare: out-of-pocket expenditure, which of course is a killer. That's the reason why a lot of people you see can get rejected at JFK, because they don't have money to pay XYZ, before they even be admitted into the hospital. How are we measuring the availability of drugs in our hospitals? Those are the things. We have a very young population. In this dispensation, we are promoting girls' education, and we are failing terribly on educating our young women, our young girls, and we want to celebrate that. So these are things that we try to invest in. That would be my measurement. Rule of law. No country can actually thrive, can build an economy without a strong and independent judiciary. No one would do that. We saw the government meddling in the judiciary system. We saw them removing a certain justice, right? We saw people that getting redress. We saw professional people, auditors, got killed. And there is no closure, no justice for these people. Who do you think will want to invest that $1 billion in such a country when you do not have a reliable judiciary system? No one will do that. So those are things I will want to measure. They'll say, okay, our country is treading on the right path. And you see some of the reasons why these development policies and everything we talk about here, I like to make reference to Rwanda, right? It is true a lot of these international organizations like the World Bank, IMF will write these nice framework and take it to the country, right? They want, because they're bringing the money, as Gamer said, and they want to dictate how their money spent. But when you have a very responsible leadership, when you have a government that knows exactly what it wants, like what is happening in Rwanda, the policy is international organizations can come to the country, but the international organization must align with the country's priority. And that is the reason why you see Rwanda is making progress. Rwanda is getting everything they're getting because Kagame is saying the goal of my healthcare policy is that I must invest XYZ into a health system, and this is the indicator, and this is what we are doing. If you want to invest into the healthcare sector, fine, you are welcome, but you must do this. This is what we want to do. And that's why you see the country is thriving.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just to conclude on that, for the context of Liberia, no one government, I can hold you accountable for that, because this has been a long trend thing. But
Thank you.
We are at a place where when the likes of Joseph Yuma Boyka comes in now and stabilize the country, where good and well-rounded people like Gabriel Carter and Anthony will come and take over the country, then we can start having that sort of conversation. That's why we need George Weah out. Simple.
Yes.
You had to come wrong
campaign. Excuse me. Let me address.
Let me address
Mr. Wilson here.
I'm in Celine Dion right now.
Mr. Wilson said he is an expert in these areas, and he is a supporter of Joseph Boakai.
I didn't say I'm an expert. Correct that.
Oh, so who are you? Why are you talking on something that you have no expertise in?
Oh, listen,
you said you teach your course for a whole year.
You expect losing.
Mr. Gamer, make your point. Make your point.
No, the point here is if this man said he can teach your course on this issue on advising government for a whole year, and he's supporting Joseph Boakai, and Joseph Boakai was there since 2005, and Joseph Boakai had one of the worst agriculture record here. This is a man who has actually done absolutely nothing, and he admitted. Here, the World Bank has said from 2005 to 2017, $17.2 billion went through the Ellen Johnson administration, and Mr. Wilson, they were all supporters. They were supporters of this government. He was advising this government, and there's nothing to show in the data, Excuse me.
Please show us the data.
I will furnish you the data. And Mr. Wilson and Joseph Boakai sat there. Did absolutely nothing. Joseph Boakai that he's supporting my Minister of Agriculture. Know where we are. Mr. Joseph Boakai was chair of, I think, director of LPMC. We know where we are.
Jerome, thank you. I think you make your point. It was not your turn. You're just making a question.
They squandered opportunities, 66 or 68 concession agreement that did not protect our natural resources. Some like the one at the seaport. It is signed for 25 years. We cannot intervene. We cannot add. We cannot subtract.
Jerome, thank you. You are just making.
So this is the hypocrisy that we're talking about. For you to even mention George Weah, who the Millennium Challenge says, for the first time in Liberia's history, we have won 14 other.
You are just interjecting.
The most Kroma ever won was 10.
Man,
the darling of the word 10. We won 14.
Thank you. Look, we were talking about what should we be measuring in Liberia if we really want to have benchmarks that we can use to determine if we are making progress. Comrade Wilson spoke well, access to credit, how much we invest in agriculture, how much we invest in education. We should be looking at the graduation rate of our girls. We have to look at the output of our teachers. We can go on and on and on. These are the things we should be looking at. And so my question to you now, Gabriel, is which institution should be taking on these things? Why I say that Liberian institutions are just waiting for somebody to tell them what? Are we not innovative? We have the Central Bank of Liberia. We have other institutions. Why are they not coming up with these criteria to measure how we're doing in these areas. Because if they put these things into play, more than likely the development partners will look at those data and say, well, based on your own report here, you're doing well, you're going to put some money in it, right?
No,
Yeah,
actually,
and thank you. That
oh,
is a
sorry,
great
I thought it
question.
was me.
Now,
Mhm.
sorry, Kruma, are you coming in?
Yeah.
I thought it was targeted to me, but I mean, I'll give you the chance. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So let me just say, I'll say it real quick, and then you can come in. So I that is a great question, by the way. Now I will say that clearly. I like the metrics that is on the scorecard. Like every metric, I love it. I think it's a great, if you look at everything that they're measuring, is great. But I don't like the methodology behind it. Like I said, some of those things you read, right? Opportunity to employment. You know, yes, I understand. We've been out of slavery long time. Right now, if you talk about child labor, I understand that. Yet you still need to protect minor from being engaged in child labor. But in collectively, I love the metric that they're using. The only thing I don't like is what they're measuring, like the access to finance. Me being having ATM right next to my house here, or a bank branch next to my house when I can't get money from that to start a business, does that mean I have access to credit or access to finance? It means nothing to that. Or me having a bank account doesn't mean I'm qualified to go get a bank loan, or the government is doing things that allows me, makes it easy for small businesses to. So as I said, I like the metric, the things that they're measuring, just the method in which that they're measuring and the data behind it does not align with that. Now, in terms of what we need to do as a country, what we need, and the same thing, I say the same thing about the report that the IMF puts out in terms of the country growth. And every time they come out, the sub-Saharan Africa, the growth. The same thing with Liberia. If every time you look at Liberia, they put out these numbers. I always tell people, and this is for all young people, whether you're in data, you're in development, they think we should know a lot about our own country than any outsider should know about our own country. The fact that we sit down here and celebrate somebody sitting in, I don't think those people even go to the interior to really understand, or water side and understand it. The trouble that Mamusu go through to sell her bunny every day to they don't know those things. They just go and collect these data and put them out. We supposed to have either at the Minister of Finance or at the central bank specifically. The central bank is supposed to do that specifically to understand these economic data that affects the country, what impact growth from the economic standpoint and what doesn't. You know, if the country is having a sluggish year, we should know, without any international community coming to tell us, we should know exactly what is being impacted because of the data we're collecting. And when I say data collection, we don't need sophisticated technology to do that. I will say this perfectly and I will land quickly. Here in America, there are 12 central banks regions. They have quarterly, what they call the beige book. The beige book is like the Bible to every business in this country. Every quarter it comes out, people eat it up because you can read it, and you can be in Minnesota and I can know what business people in Minnesota are thinking, whether they're ordering more goods or not, and what sector they think are going to go down, right? I can be here and know that. I can do the same thing with California. You know how they collect those data? They just pick up phones and call businesses. Survey. They put out surveys, right? They put out survey in a real estate, in different sector of the economy, and come out with that book every quarter. What are we doing in Liberia that we can do the same thing? The people that are working in those central bank or the minister, what you don't even have to call people. You can drive. If that means you take every 3 months, you drive to those county, make sure you make county tours to understand the businesses. You know, you have a good understanding of the businesses in our country to know exactly the things that are affecting them. You will have a better understanding of your own economy than these international community putting out these numbers that don't align with the reality on the ground. So I think the central bank and the Minister of Finance need to step up and do what they're supposed to be doing.
But let me add something to what Gabriel is saying. Yeah, with central bank is monetary policies, finance is fiscal policy. But here's the essential thing that happened. We used to have a Ministry of planning and economics that was separate from the finance. And this was essential because their concern was not meeting budget. That was not their concern. Their concern was looking at these factors that you were talking about here, the growth factor, where we should plan and invest in the future years. Now, all that is under the finance ministry, and the finance ministry is looking at what are they looking at? Meeting budgets. What they're looking at, deficits. They're not looking at the planning and economics anymore, and that is why it was a autonomous agency to the finance. And I think that was a fundamental mistake we made by combining the two, and that's what we have what we have today.
Okay, let me jump in here too. I like what Mr. Ismail just said. I share your view. I totally share your view. Even when the reform happened, I couldn't conceptualize how we're bringing in the finance under the budget. Well, they're not under the budget, but in the same department. It makes sense to say, well, if finance is looking medium and long term, and we're talking about economic growth, and we're talking about key sectors of the economy, let's match them up with the budget department so the planning and the budgeting can work hand in hand. It makes sense, right? But the truth is that if you do that, there's so much emphasis that is placed mostly on the budget, and the planning aspect sometimes get ignored. And I honestly have seen that. I witnessed it firsthand because I worked for at least 3 years in that reform sector, and I realized how the planning there was not so much emphasis on the planning aspect, but mostly on the budget, because the deputy minister for budget is also the deputy minister for planning. And so much of that work that deputy minister does is paying attention to budget performance, rather than looking at medium and long-term planning. So you have a director of planning who comes to the deputy minister and say, Minister, over the next 3 years, over the next 5 years, these are the things that I feel that are important that we should look at. Hold on to that thought. Let's meet next week and we'll talk about it. I want the budgeting. Right now we're developing the budget. By the time the budget is developed, it goes directly into implementation. And so you got to pay attention to who getting what and disbursement and all that. So most of the energy for planning side gets ignored. But the other part that I wanted to talk about, what Gabriel also emphasized, is that we do have, we have these things on book. But in reality, when it comes to implementation, that's where it becomes a little fuzzy, because the truth of the matter is, in our political system in Liberia, public officials pay more attention to loyalty than having quality employees that actually do actual work. Mm-hmm. So you can have someone in that department who can actually go in the field and do a study and evaluate and get you a quality report, but that person don't get any attention because that minister of finance or that minister of wherever, the head of the central bank is looking at someone who is more loyal to him and giving that person opportunity. So it becomes crazy. And I guess, we have this poverty mindset that everybody thinks success for them means building a big house, getting a small car and putting your children in a privileged private school. For them, then, you're a successful Liberian. We don't give credit to, the teachers that are sitting in the classroom teaching you economics, or the nurse or the doctor that helped your wife deliver. We don't give credit to none of those people, right? So for us, the success in Liberia is that person who works at finance ministry, central bank. Those are the big institutions, Ministry of Commerce. Everything else, screw all of y'all. And unless we change that mindset, that culture, and gets to the point where we hold everybody accountable, we develop a merit-based system, we start to see how the economics of growth can happen. If you ask me, to be honest with you, we should have no university in Liberia. Everything we have in Liberia should be technical education. People should actually learn to work with their hands. Let them go in the field and do something, carpentry, masonry. Gambia did that for years.
You and Leo got the same opinion. He said, "My convert to LU."
Thank you, Comrade Kroma, and gentlemen.
Getting degrees in the sitting home. They don't do anything.
Yeah, I'm enjoying the discussion as a host here. But the whole thing about this MCC score now, the politics is really in it. This is a finance minister who should be explaining to us, the metrics they are using and what they are doing as an institution to meet the best match of this institution so that they can get some money, to invest in roads and other things, right? But he's bringing the president in. The president has done a great job. This is the greatest president of all. He even went further by saying this will be what determines who wins the presidency. Now, on the other side, the United Party folks and most of the opposition folks, when CDC was struggling as a government to pass this thing, and say, well, and United Party, we passed the scorecard, and then we got this money, and yet the CDC, they can't even pass the thing. So you gave them reason now for them to celebrate. They say, oh, well, that is not important, right? So, but then let's leave that and come to my final question here, gentlemen. Which of the following now will have the greatest impact on the runoff election? A, the MCC scorecard, as Samuel Twe is suggesting, the endorsement that we see, Henry Costa crusade of going after JMB, none of the above, all of the above. Who is the politician here? You start. Our politician is behind the curtain.
Since since I've not been talking for a while, I'd like to jump on this.
Please.
Are you kidding me? Joe Wilson, you say you have not been talking for a while?
Yeah. I think the one you doing behind the scene, probably you were preparing for. You heard I was coming, so you want to get some wine. Eh?
Is that Joe Camel, the camel?
Man, why are you doing, Joe? I know what you doing.
So the only way he can engage me is to get some wine.
Maybe he's out of fuel.
You see, you see he drinking it. You see, I know why you're not bottle. It's not water, my friend. Don't fool me.
I mean, I don't drink alcohol. Like water.
Joe, you are protected. Comrade, go ahead.
Anyways, we're gonna play the most in these elections is the bread and butter issues.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm gonna factor the most in these elections.
Okay.
I love the endorsement. I think it's gonna help, right? But it's going to trickle down to what happens in the life of the individual voter. That's what going to. I think Maurice, you need to mute. Thank you. That's what's going to happen. Going to play the most important factor, right? We can all follow the numbers. I mean, how many the numbers ARCOP is bringing to JMB. All of these things, they were good. But the living condition of the individual voter is going to matter the most. What is the current condition of the individual voter? I tell you, more than 50% of our country live on less than $1.90 a day. That's poverty, deep poverty. People want their lives to be improved. That's going to impact the voting. Some of the names that you mentioned, I really don't want to give credence to that because I don't think blackmail will do anything in these elections against Joseph Human Boyka. So that whole blackmail spree from that individuals, I mean, I don't think we should even be discussing these kind of people. I respect FOL a lot, and I see the kind of people on this platform. It's just a disservice to even bring that individual to this sort of conversation. These are people who left Liberia, somehow came to the United States, forged their way, create for themselves a career, and still have the time. You say something to me?
I was just saying, you people were just on the same thing just yesterday. And
listen,
now he switched his side and his name.
I have my own personal. I'll be honest with you. I have my own personal disagreement with that individual from day one. I've stated that over and over. So for me, it's a no-go zone, right?
But you have welcomed his contribution. It's the same style that he was doing against the other side.
Oh well, I did not. There were times. There was a time that this individual even said he hated President Weah with passion. I said this is disgusting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that. I watched that live.
Yeah, I said this is disgusting. The first thing, you don't hate people. Second, this is the president of the Republic of Liberia. I mean, I can disagree with President Weah all I want. I wouldn't insult him, denigrate him to the extent the way that individual has been doing. It's disrespectful, of course, and we should not be condoning that. So for the fact that he leaves one side and go to the other camp and they think that they have gotten something better. Do you know what we are telling the future generation? Do you know what we're telling the young people after all? Like, don't pay attention going to school. Don't work the 9 to 5. All you need to do, blackmail people, you will get relevant. And that is destroying the country. And we should not condone that. Not at all. Anyway, this is what I think will happen. The endorsement will play a factor, but individual political party, the Unity Party, the Rescue Mission, has to go beyond just the endorsement. They have to go out, campaign to the people, and I think that will play a significant role. On the issue of the MCC scorecard, listen to me. The people in Kawekin who do not have access to good roads, who markets are stuck on the road, the people to Grand G, the Zulu Whiskey, the cars are stuck in the mud. I'm not sure they understand the MCC scorecard. As we speak, there are drivers stuck on the road in the mud in the southeastern region. Do these people give a damn about what happens to MCC scorecard? They don't. So this MCC scorecard will play no role. MCC scorecard means nothing to the people. That's the reason why Samuel Tua was chased out of G.W. Gibson High School, because the students were saying we need laboratory. They do not have equipment in their labs. They're chasing out, and he ran away like something I don't want to describe. So the bread and butter issues will play the most important roles in this runoff election. The young people need jobs, jobs, and jobs.
Thank you.
The people need security. And
yeah, I watched the video of the students in their uniform. They were furious. They were very unhappy with the finance minister. They know the condition. I mean, can you imagine even in Monrovia, children as students are sitting in chairs that are dilapidated. Even on the campuses of the University of Liberia, we have tents as classrooms. I mean, and people are celebrating some kind of scorecard. No one knows what it means. Jimmy, what would make the difference in this election? Samuel Tua said the scorecard going to determine who wins the election. You agree?
Well, I guess you can see what the students thought about that. What I believe is going to make the difference, as much as the bread and butter issues you would think would be the principal reasons people support one candidate or the other. But a lot of times I've seen it's perception. I remember the We Are Wave in 2017. It was such a movement to make We Are president. And why? Because it was in the minds of the voters that he would have brought relief. He would have brought prosperity. He would have represented the downtrodden and raised them from the grassroots. That was the perception. And I think even today, it's not going to change. Whoever can grab that wave again, who can make the people think that they are going to be the solution, will be the one. Even I heard the Mr. Wilson's commentary and assurance that Buakai would deliver. I would challenge him to show me evidence of his being able to deliver. But this is, for me, it's not a matter of electioneering right now. I'm just saying whoever can capture the minds of the people to make them think that they will be the best solution, that's what's going to do it. Is not the better even, is what you can put in their minds to make them think. That's the way they will go.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jermaine. Morris?
So I think in any elections, election is a majority rule game. Whoever have the highest is the winner, right? So it's a competition of popularity. I mean, you can talk about some of the worst leaders that we've seen in the world still get elected. Right in our noses here, we have good examples of those people. So it's a rule of majority. Whoever the people agree with, that's the downside of democracy. I don't think any of the options you gave us will determine who win the runoff election. I think most of the people's minds are made up already about who they're going to support. Those who voted in the first round of the election voted for their respective candidates. 56% of them did not want WIA. They wanted an opposition. So they either choose Cummings or they chose Waika or they chose other candidates. All the other 19 candidates, they chose someone. 56% of those people did not want WIA. That's a good measure of how most Liberians don't want President WIA anymore. Now that the elections have reduced to 2 candidates, I think those people who don't want WIA will still not want WIA in the second round. I think they will still make a decision. I also believe that with the level of activities that are happening, all of the different things that are happening now in the country, there's a likelihood that some people who voted WIA in the first round may not support him in the second round as well. It's, these are predictions. They're subject to, different things. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe we'll wake up tomorrow morning and President WIA will get $1 billion budget and he'll say, okay, this $1 billion will put it out in the economy and maybe it will change people's minds. So we're just predicting based on what we see right now. And I think the people that have decided, they have already made up their mind. I don't think anything's going to change that between now and Tuesday.
Mr. Goodman?
I think for the first time, I have to agree with the Unity Party saint here that 56% of the population voted against President WIA. On the other side, 57% voted against Joseph Waika, so Joseph Waika still loses. Either way you go. There were more people that voted for President WIA than voted for Joseph Waika. So either way, Joseph Waika is losing. If my brother said that those people who voted, their mind have already been made up, then George WIA is still going to win the election by 10,000 votes because that's what the difference was. So those people's minds are cast in stone according to what they are saying. President WIA wins. Like now is the popular vote. It is not a super majority anymore. President WIA won the first round by a slim majority. And if what they are saying is true, that these people's minds are made up and they are stuck where they are, then President WIA will be elected comes 2020 next Tuesday. But what we try to say here is, I have to agree with them. At this point, endorsement, to me, with me, absolutely, maybe not even much. It has to do with, in America, we say, get out the vote. Who has the ability to bring their people out to vote? Because this is what doing well in the interior, they will say during the old days, you want Chief Kroma, line up behind Chief Kroma. If Chief Kroma get more people behind, we count the hair, he wins. That's it. There is no endorsement that's going to help you if you don't bring your folks to the poll. So anybody who tells you that they have the magic wand or they have the calculus, they are lying. The only thing I can tell you is in politics, any news is good news. If CDC have had a bad day with this millennium, believe it or not, Joe Wilson will be out here. Kroma will be out here. They will be wearing their red shoes and their red top hats. Mr. Carter will be down here with his coattail.
I thought that green they can wear.
No, they're not. We're talking about split tail coat now. They come in with a society coat and a high hat.
We don't associate with tail coat people.
We told you these guys was like, but let me read this. It sounds more like Joe Wilson and Kroma here because they are desperate. And I'm going to read this because it's from a very guy that I respect, John Stewart. This is his say, what he wrote against the Millennium Challenge. He said, why now, just today, before the runoff, Liberia gets a policy score? Is this a subtle endorsement by the United States of George WIA? This is a man who is a steward, a stalwart of the Unity Party, a great writer, a great thinker, is beginning to throw in the towel that he says This is a subtle endorsement of the George Weah administration by the American government, and he thinks the American government is meddling in our foreign or
Elections.
sovereign affairs, in our election, our sovereignty, all of these things. So here we are. The partisans have begun to circle the wagon.
How is that throwing in the tower, Jerome?
Well, this is the deep thinker. Instead of coming out and debunking and saying that this president is going to lose because of XYZ, he is saying this is an endorsement by our superpower, and they are endorsing the wrong candidate. To me, he is setting himself up when he loses on Tuesday. Say, I told you so. Uncle Sam had a part to play. It's written in black and white. You can read it for yourself. Thank you.
All right, Gabriel.
Yeah, well, after the show, I think we should include a policy that you cannot drink on the show. You can't. I'll talk to Dennis about that.
Come on, start celebrating. Not even water.
He's talking about Dom Perignon.
I know, you know what I'm talking about. I will talk to Dennis about that. Well, I have my point. I have my reason.
Okay, go ahead.
I will agree maybe somewhat to some of the things that the guy said. I think right now it's all about perception. If the ruling party can parlay this MCC into good talking points, they can make some headwinds with it, because I think, in as much that I don't like the metric behind it, it's a good win. In addition to that, I think endorsement will play a little bit a part in it, but if you look at the endorsement and how they have been happening, I don't think any candidate should rely on it, because you will see the head of the party endorsing one person and the rest of the body going someplace else. So it's not really a legitimate endorsement where you will see, let's say my party is endorsing Mr. Gaiman and all of you are rallying behind me ushering all of you that you should support Mr. Gaiman. It's not the kind of endorsement that we see happening. It's usually I'm supporting Mr. Gaiman, and you see somebody else, the rest of the supporters that I have are supporting somebody else. So you cannot rely on that kind of endorsement to say that is going to get you above the finish line. Now, as far as the rest of the what are the MCC scorecard, well, I think it was Henry Costa you label on there. I have the same reservation that Joe has. I from the beginning, it's unfortunate that we allow this kind of narrative within our body of politics, and we give a platform to somebody like that to actually create a stage that they can come on and make this kind of influence, given the history, given the kind of individual he is. I don't envy the guy. I just envy the people that that gave him that level of influence to meddle in our politics and give him that level of credibility within the within our body of politics. But I don't think he's going to have any influence in the election. Now, I would say there's one last thing, and I will end. I think this is all for the taking. Now, I say this because, as you guys rightly pointed out, that's 47 to 46. There's a 13% that is off for grab. Here's one thing that I will say, and I will continue to say. I think we're misusing the Liberian people time. Like this, having these two runoff, a first round, a second round, is not a good use of Liberian people time. Because of that, the amount of people that showed up in the first round will be less people showing up. So if you think you've already secured 46% vote, and you rely on that, those people you secured in your pocket, you have another thing coming for you, because those people will not have this transportation to come out again and go vote for you. So you need to be campaigning all over again to get votes. So you should not be relying on that 46%, because everybody that came out to vote for you, the 46%, none of them will have the transportation to come out. And I don't think they have the capital right now to say they're going to bus people, truck people, or whatever they're going to do to bring them to the polling station. So that you should discount a percentage of that population to say, hey, I've already losing that percentage of vote. So because of that, I believe this is still up for the taking. This is anybody's election to win. Now, I will say one last thing. I promise. I want the Unity Party to win, and there's a reason why I want them to win. I want them to win because I want the Liberian people to learn their lesson. Why? Because if they win, the state that they inherit, it will take maybe 3 to 4 years before you even get it back to normal. By that time, the Liberian people would have exhausted with you, right? That is not to say you're not capable, but that is to say that the state that you're inheriting, it was already like a broke nation, broke coffers, failing economy, everything is stagnant. And to tell the Liberian people that, hey, you should have tried something else. There's 20 years. You had a Unity Party. You had the CDC. I believe you could have gone with somebody else. This is why I want them to elect the Unity Party again, so they can see from their mistake that, hey, maybe we should have gone. We should have tried somebody else. But that's the reason why, and it's a bias, and I will stick to that. Thank you.
I mean, Gabriel,
we've been there. We've done that. Right? We inherited a failed state in 2006.
Yeah.
We brought it up, and then CZK and took it further south. We got the experience, Gabriel. We got you.
Okay? But even Wilson, you also got the experience of squandering.
Gentlemen, who has not spoken to the final question?
Everybody has spoken.
Everybody has, but I think they're trying to make a point.
I don't want to make one point to Gabriel before go. I think Gabriel, the risk that you also mentioned, even if they had tried somebody else, they would have still inherited this same old failed state, right? So even without the Unity Party, if the Liberian people have chosen another person, they will still inherit the same problems that we are leaving behind.
Yeah, but they were not inherit squanderers. They were not inherit squanderers.
3-4 years from now, that the Liberian people probably will be expressing the same disgust that you are talking about. So I don't think it's the same.
Thank you.
No, I think what Gabriel is saying, they would get more of the same. They will not get anything different. That's what I think he's really saying. It would be more of the same. And I want to state here emphatically, Ellen Johnson UP Party is not Joe Wilson UP. I mean, it's not Joe Walker.
We forget that. We forget that.
It's not the same party. Believe me, it's not.
I agree with you, Jimmy. I share that sentiment. Morris. I share that sentiment that the timing are different. We were at a time where we're just recovering from war, right? So about the time we didn't have infrastructures, everything collapsed at the time. Now we have infrastructure, although they have been collapsed to a certain extent, but we're picking up from somewhere. But this time around, we're bringing new ideas, new dynamism. We're not stuck in a box, to use the same old idea. As a matter of fact, that's what Joseph Human-Burger is saying. I am a race car. I was in the garage. You can't judge me on my ability to become president when you have not tried me as a president.
Listen,
so there's new level of dynamism.
Any car that passed for 18 years, any car that passed for 18 years should not be on the road. It's not road worth it. Mr. C, we got a lot of people on our line from the court I'm getting.
You calling your people
Gentlemen, I will have to make those who are trying to get on the call not happy today. We've gone 2 hours, and I think we had a great discussion, gentlemen. I appreciate your contribution tonight. You did excellent, and I think the viewers also from the comments are saying they are in agreement with most of the points that you made. Folks in cyberspace, sorry, this is how we'll have to come to the end of this yet another edition of our program here at Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. The MCC scorecard should not be what we use to measure how we are making progress in our country, Liberia. When it comes to education, what they're looking at does not reflect the reality on the ground. No. Look at our country. How many of our young people have access to computer? technology, Joey agrees with me. Joey agree with me. Rule the world right now. Let me see any of our leaders who is telling us that when I become president, there will be computer in every government school and every child will have access. Are you hearing from any of them? The point I'm making is we must come up with criteria as a country through our institutions that will measure how we're doing when it comes to girls' education, boys' education, teachers, and so on and so forth. We must start those things now. And we can demand from the internationalists, these are the data you will use to supply us with money. I think it will go better because the central bank, because most of our marketplaces or business centers in Liberia, they are accountable. Somebody can get in a car from the central bank and go to relay. They can deploy their team and go from one market stock to the other, ask for the people there and collect that data. And ask them, where did you get your money from to start a business? How much are you making? Pull that data together and tell development partner, hey, based on this information, I think we need more money in the area. They should start doing that now. I think it will help us better than bureaucrats sitting in Washington and say, well, one guy let $250 million do X, Y, Z when those things don't even reflect the reality on the ground. This is a disservice. And then when the leaders get the money again, they squander the money in the words of our wise old men.
Don't use that word squander, man.
No, he was right. You know, they squander opportunities. You know, according to him, they were doing PowerPoint presentation instead of doing implementation. And I agree with that. You know, maybe they should have focused more on implementation, and there where we have a major problem as well. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough, and also to our followers. This is how we'll come to this edition of the Hour of Politics. Gentlemen, the son that closest the broadcast says, we are all Liberians. Whoever wins, be it Joe Walker and Joshua. Really? Joshua again? Well, the people will decide. Gentlemen, thank you and bye-bye.
We are Liberians.